was, I didn't really I just had, this is what I want, but I didn't necessarily support that all the time in my actions and what I was doing and what I was telling people. And there's still things I can improve on that. And just trying to get as close to that as possible. Like, okay, here's what I want. Here's my outcome. Here's what I want to get out of my team. And here's what I want to create. But is like everything I'm doing leading to that? And am I setting that example for my team all the time? And those are things I started to shift my focus more towards this second time around, and is a really big focus for me this year. So
I love the intentionality emphasis. I think that's part of the call today, was just talking about the importance of actually being intentional about your actions and focusing on making sure that all of your actions are in aligned with the culture that you're trying to build. Okay, so Reanna, we're going to skip the second question because you kind of already answered it. The third question here is, how did you build a culture of sales in your office last summer?
So really just like, instead of just talking about like doing PDI, like my first summer, my second summer, I really like wanted to know every detail about PDI, like really how to make it a system and a program versus just something I did occasionally. And so just creating that culture of, like I said earlier, hey, after the end of the call, like when's the next time you're going to make phone calls? Like expecting that of them instead of like knowing they're not making phone calls and not bringing it up until you see them in the office again, right? Like expecting that. Teaching them, this is something I learned from Logan Franke this winter, is teaching at every team meeting someone how to make a schedule, because you're always going to have new people and people won't do demos if they don't have their schedule made each week. So just creating that, creating a breakfast club culture, phone jam culture, having raffle tickets, making it fun, putting them against each other. And then just really talking about how it felt to sell something, because people remember, they don't remember what they sold or who they saw, but they remember how they felt during that. So when you ask them how they felt in front of a team meeting, like people feel so good about it and just creating that nostalgia. And so they want to do it again.
Yeah. So Reanna, then can you touch a little bit, I know that you talked about expectations and having that expectation that your people were going to be making calls on their own because you started to ask about it, and your people could understand that your standard was that people were going to be making calls outside of the office. It wasn't just work done in the office, but outside of the office. And then you upheld that expectation by asking them, hey, when are you taking that action? I know this wasn't a question I sent you, but I'm curious if you could just share it off the top of your head here. What were some of the other standards, like the baseline levels of tolerance that you had for sales? And then what were the expectations that you expected of your people from an action standpoint?
Yeah, so this is something I definitely could have, it's probably like one of my biggest things that I wanted to get better on, because my PPR could have been a lot better with the amount of people I recruited, because I just wasn't holding them to that standard that well. But the standards I did have, it's like thinking that Shelby was saying, you have to have standards, but then you have to enforce them. And I just wasn't remembering to enforce them because summer got so crazy. And so just making sure, like, yeah, people are on time. That's like number one, because that's how you present yourself. It's how you show up. So, and then really just for sales, it's like, I think it was like 5, 7, 10 or something like that. If you're part-time, it's 5. If you're like, if you have like a week in the middle, it's going to be 7. And then if you're full-time, you should at least be doing 10 demos. And I also had a standard of picking one breakfast club and making the team meeting phone jam. And if you were full-time, it would be like 2 breakfast clubs and the team meeting phone jam.
Reanna, not everybody knows what a breakfast club is. Can you just quickly define that?
Oh, yeah. So breakfast club is like, people might have called it like Champions Club. There's a whole bunch of different names for it. But it's like when you come in the morning from 8 to 9 a.m. and make phone calls, which I'm sure, you guys have all done it before, some form of that. So just making sure they come in and make 20 calls and leave, and promoting how, like, usually the results from that, you'll get 2 to 3 demos scheduled and they'll sell at least $500 from that morning and make X amount of money. So just kind of promoting that.
Cool. All right, Nathan, same question for you. Can you talk about how you built a sales culture in your office? And then the follow-up question for you, if you want to add it all into one answer, is what were the standards and then what were the expectations that you had?
Yeah, so I think first off, it all started in training, I think. A really good video on Vector Connect to watch, if I were you guys, is Drew Frank's team meeting. I'll get to that in a second, just how he runs that. But first off, I think just the expectation in training and just trying to say as many times in training, this is what our reps do when they launch out of my office. When you launch out of my office, you will hit your first promotion your first weekend when you do 10 demos. Like those sorts of mindsets, letting them understand 10 demos first weekend and emphasizing first promotion, first weekend, if at all possible. I would bet 95% of you on the call hit your first promotion your first weekend. And that is like the catalyst to PPR, high sales levels, confidence for reps, first promo, first weekend, and trying to say that as many times in training. But then when that happens, reaffirming those actions to them through like PDI. And then when we get to like a team meeting, just making that a love fest for everyone, like just pouring like recognition on people for the work that they did and not tearing anybody down, but doing, building people up through what they've been doing. So for example, if someone is, busting their tail, like I had a rep this summer, his name was Drake, and it was middle of SC1. He got in a car accident, mid push, like totaled his car, had some back problems, literally sold Cutco to his nurse in the hospital, like while on his bed. And then after that gets up, continues doing demos like 2 days later, and like finishes the push and sells 3,000 for the push. And like recognizing that to your team and being like, hey, if he did that, anyone that's in decent condition and has a car can do this, and just like building through stories. But when it comes to like sales, I think it's really good, like having those human trophies in your office. And when you're brand new to, running a branch office, you don't have that, but just speaking it into existence in training is when it first starts. And then once you get those people that start, doing the things the right way, you just promote that of what you want. Because all it is in the team meeting is promoting what you want in your office through your rep success. Because like you're going to say whatever you want to say. They're going to be like, oh, you're saying whatever because you're the boss. You're going to say whatever you want. But when you have, reps that made, $1,000 in a week or $500 in 3 days or whatever, saying, hey, if you want to do that, you do this, and then them saying like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like I can do that. If I do that, this will happen. And you get enough people where that starts to steamroll, and then almost the entire team starts doing that. It becomes like a trend almost. And people are like, you're crazy if you're not doing that. Now you're going to have people that don't want to do that, want to go laid back, do their own thing. But those people that buy into that, that's when you start creating like what Reanna was saying, like, morning meetings, morning phone time, extra phoning around demos, just going above and beyond. Is you get that representative, in training, you're like, this is what our reps do. They do that, they get that success, and then you just ride that train.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love the power of stories. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really great. Okay. Reanna, and I know that we're coming up at the very end here. If you guys can stay longer, great. If you can't, no big deal. But I would love to hear from Reanna, especially on recruiting. How did you create a recruiting culture, a PR culture, Facebook culture, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so it's not just like the simplest form like recruiting. You don't just have people show up and like recruit them in interviews. Like there's like a format to it. So you have to like just view every time you're talking to a rep, whether they're on your team or there's someone that is going to be on your team, like just know that either they are recruitable or when you're talking to them, you could get recruits from them right there. And it's not like you're using them. It's like, hey, like this is what's in it for you. This is like that vision thing. Like you can say anything you want if you promote that vision and they're excited about it. So just knowing like if you have a rep in the office and they're just like making phone calls, when they're done making phone calls before they leave, like, hey, can we like 3-way text with your buddy so-and-so? Like just making that like a culture. So I guess some of the things I did my second summer was making sure that people were really pumped to build a team, and that comes from like the what you're building talk and like that vision. Then you have to like prep them well on how to talk about the job, especially when you're sending out their first PR text or calling their friends right away. That's like the start. Like that's the first touch of their friends. It has to be, they have to know how to talk about the job and what their friends say affect them too. And then just promote like things that are going to make them excited, whether it's contests that you're doing for PRs, whether it's a company trip for building the team. And then a big thing that I did this summer was I always let people know where they're at. So like even after training, like they could be here for 2 months in the summer, and like mid-May or mid-June, I'd be like, hey, we never talked to those people. Like let's get 5 more people of your friends on the team, and telling them you're at 2 credits for the summer contest to win the trip to Bahamas, right? So you're 1 away, and they like work on it with me to get to that credit, and just kind of just recognizing them, letting them know where they're at, and making it like a team thing. So it's like you and them against their friend. Like we're in this together. I bet you we can get your friend Matt to come in for the interview, like that kind of thing.
Oh, I love that so much. And I love the fact that you also reminded them throughout the summer. And it's also recognizing that the PR surge does not just happen when they finish training.
Right.
As a matter of fact, you might actually get their best PRs later in the summer when they have hit $6, $10, $15, $20,000 and their friends have now seen the success. I think about my best friend Hadley. When I first got started, she was like, no way am I ever doing that. And it wasn't until I hit $30,000 that she was like, all right, fine, I'll do that. And she ended up selling $30,000 that summer too. So, remembering that it's not just about the end of the training, it's about continuing to talk about that all throughout the summer. So thank you for bringing that up, Reanna. That's awesome. Nathan, I want to ask you a different question here. This is a really important question because we can talk about all the best ways to build a culture, but there are going to be moments throughout your summer where somebody challenges that and they become a difficult rep and somebody who might kind of throw a negative shade on what you're trying to build. So Nathan, I would love for you to talk about how you protected your culture when somebody wasn't necessarily playing along.
Yeah, great question. So I think one example comes to mind with that my second summer, but I'm going to hit my first summer first because I had a rep that in the middle of training basically wanted to just leave in the middle of it. And I could tell, it wasn't something they're excited about and they wanted to do. But the individual wanted to leave in the middle of training. And, he met with me after basically like the main intro talk of training. And, whenever you have a tough conversation, you definitely want to have that one-on-one ideally. So I brought him into my office and I was like, hey man, what's going on? You want to leave training? And he basically was just like, yeah, I got to go do something. I'm like, well, you got to let me know what that is. If we're just going to leave training, you got to let me know what's going on. And I was freaking out on the inside. I was 19 years old, and that kind of conversation freaks me out. But I had to have this like, hey, you got to let me know what's going on if you're going to leave in the middle of my training. Because every other there was my biggest training of my summer, and there was 9 people in there, or there was 12 in day one. I ended up launching 9. All right, but 12 kids in day one, and that kid just walks out in the middle of training. What's that going to do with everyone else's mindset? Why did that kid just leave? Why did this happen? Right? So it was really important that you have that conversation. He was basically like, look, I'm not learning anything. And I said, all right, well, how about this? We just went through the intro talk. We haven't even learned anything yet. I said, give it to the end of the day. All right. And if you don't learn anything in training, you talk to me after training, and totally understandable. But I guarantee you're going to learn things and you're going to be successful if you finish this training. And in my head, I'm like, I have no idea what he's going to think. I'm freaking out on the inside. And he ended up launching through training and ended up hitting D30. And ended up
D3 or D30.
I'm sorry. Oh, $10,000 in sales.
Okay, thank you.
Hit 30%. Yeah, we call it D30. So basically that's what ended up happening with him. And then he had a huge PR chain after that. And I think a big part of that was just, speaking that into existence from confidence, even though like I didn't necessarily feel that on the inside, making sure I expressed that. But then also with, a representative that I had representatives that didn't show up to team meetings. That's a very common one. A rep will miss a team meeting. They don't check in for PDI. Those are basic things that are really important in a vector office, but a lot of people don't do. And making sure that you follow up immediately, like pouncing on that right when it happens. So like if a rep does not check in after their first demo. Like, you should have a little bit of paranoia in your head. Like, what is going on? Did they get in a car crash? Did they die? You know, like, that's what goes through my head if someone's not checking into PDI. So, like, say it's training ends at 2, you got a demo at 3, and it is 5 o'clock and they haven't checked in yet. That's what's running through my head. I immediately call them and I'm like, hey, what's going on? It's 5 o'clock. Yeah, demo at 3. What's going on? Like, that's my first immediate thing. I'm like, is everything okay? You know, like, giving them the benefit of the doubt, but they're knowing, oh crap, he's going to notice this. And then at the end of the, you know, PDI call, hey, just make sure we're checking after every demo. They probably got the misinterpretation of checking at the end of the day or whatever, but just reaffirming that. And then the people that do it, they check in at 3:40 or 4:45 after a demo saying, hey, I really appreciate you checking in. It makes my job a lot easier. You know, that makes them feel good. They're like, I'm making my manager feel good, and they're going to check in again and again and again, and reappreciating them every single time. And those sort of things with PDI, I think, go a really long way. And I haven't really had a lot of struggles with it since June of my first summer, because like I got some tips from people around my region with that. Also, when it comes to team meetings, you know, it's okay to be tough on people. I think, you know, as long as you set those expectations, like, hey, I'm going to be tough on you, but this is for your success. You know, we're all on the same team. I don't make a salary. I get paid on your success and you get paid on your success. We're all a team. You know, it's okay to be tough on people and let them know, hey, I'm going to be tough on you, because they understand that their success is correlated to your success. And you're not going to just be tough on someone just to be mean. You're going to be tough on someone to make them more money and help them be successful. And when you come from that place and, you know, your reps understand you're coming from that place, they're way more open to feedback and, you know, taking that to heart. And I think it's way better to be tough on people. You don't want to be like so tough that you're freaking them out, you know, but being tough on them to make them successful, because if not, you're doing them a disservice. You know, like, for example, I lost so many reps my first summer in training, and also like their first weekend brand new on the job, because I just was scared to be tough on them. And I think back and I'm like, man, if I would have been tough on a couple of those guys, or if I would have said this differently, how much different my summer would have been, or how much different, like, those people would have been successful, how much more impacted they would have been from what I did. And, you know, sometimes it's just better to be tough on them, because if not, they're just going to not be successful anyway, you know? So you might as well just be tough on them, but also understanding it's really important that they understand that you're coming from the right place. So I think phrasing that, you know, in training is really important too. And that happens right at the beginning in your intro talk, or if not, it should be, you know, just letting them know that, you know, you're going to be tough on them, but not coming from that mean place.
Yeah. And again, going back to the 5 or 6 steps I gave you all when it comes to standards and expectations, Nathan nailed it. He shared about how he would affirm with them that he's there for their success. He also had a backup plan when somebody wasn't meeting the expectations. He knew how to have that conversation with them. And those tough conversations are what trip most people up, because the reality is, it's easy to say to a group, these are the standards, these are the expectations, but it's really hard when somebody starts to not do that, to actually sit down with them and call them out on it. And it can be scary at times, but it's important to remember that they are there to work and earn money. And if you aren't, like what Nathan said, if you're not upholding the standards that you know are there for success, then they're not going to make money. And I like to relate it back to maybe a high school teacher that you had, where at times they were kind of a hard ass, but you got really good grades and you look back at that experience and you're like, wow, they taught me a lot about life. Or a coach. Maybe there was a coach that you had on a high school sports team where you guys were really, really successful, but at times the coach will come down on you. And those are the people that really take the mentorship place in your heart and mind. And so you have the ability to be that for somebody, but you have to be okay with calling them out kindly and being curious before critical. Like what Nathan was saying about calling people after their first demo if they didn't hear from them. He's not calling them and being accusatory. Hey man, why are you dodging my calls? Why are you ignoring me? No, he's saying, hey man, is everything okay? Like, I haven't heard from you. I thought you got into a car accident or something. And it's having that curiosity before criticism. I want to wrap the call up for Nathan and Reanna, because I know they have got they've got things to do. But I do want to give Reanna and Nathan both 30 seconds to give any last tips about creating a culture for this group here. So Reanna, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I would just say, recruit a lot of people. I mean, it's easy to say than done, but be intentional with it, because this call is about culture, obviously, but that culture won't form without people, and it will naturally form a lot faster with a lot of people. So be intentional with it. Focus on people you want to target on Instagram, on Facebook. Maybe if you're branching in your own area, think about friends that you never reached out to. Think about the athletes, the deck of people, the honor rolls. And because if you start that early, those people are going to reciprocate what you tell them to do, and they're going to have amazing friends to start you off for that summer, and that culture is going to build super fast. So
Love it. Nathan, what about you? Final pieces of advice?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to like just generally, when it comes to treating people, just treat others how you want to be treated. Like think about your manager and how they coach you to success. You want to treat people for the way you want to be treated. Like you want to be tough on people, but don't come across, like Shelby said, like in a way that's demeaning or putting people down. Like you want to do that through building them up. And I think every conversation you have with giving them tips and coaching them, being tough on expectations, all of that's really important. But the most important thing is that they understand that you're coming from the right place from that, and phrasing all of you being tough on them as a manager and being professional and all these other things, making sure they understand that, hey, this guy is looking out for me. He's a good guy. He's trying to make me successful. Like, in that there's actually a benefit from them listening to you, understanding that, like, the what's in it for them, kind of conversations, like them understanding, hey, this guy has my best interest at heart, and keeping that trust and not breaking that, I think is really the most important thing, because you keep that going throughout their entire career. A lot of times, like, not only are they just going to work hard and be successful and appreciate you, but like they may even go above and beyond for you, with whatever it may be. So I think that's my last piece of advice I would give.
Thank you both so much for giving us your time this afternoon. For everyone that's still on the call, here's how you can win the last 2 books. I have shared this before. It's really important that everybody in the Branch Impact page understands the value of these calls. I hope you gained value today. I know I gained value today. And the way that you can be eligible to win the book is by sharing your takeaways on the Branch Impact call. So make a post after we wrap up here, sharing 3 to 5 takeaways or 1 to 2 takeaways, doesn't really matter. And I will choose 2 people at random to send the book to. The winners from just the participation is Christina, Anna, and Ruth Ann. So please send me your mailing addresses and I will get those books to you as soon as possible. I would like to open it up for questions. I'm able to stick around as long as you all need me to. But if you've got any questions specifically for Nathan or Reanna, please ask them now. You can use the Zoom group chat, or you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and start speaking. So any questions on culture for Nathan, Reanna, or myself?
Okay, so Reanna, you mentioned that did you mention that you have friends that work with you? Like, you mentioned something about, branching in your hometown and then, having people on your team that you knew. Well, so that's basically my case. I'm branching again in the same branch I started in. And last year I was kind of not able, I didn't know how to get respect and, get people that I've known for years to respect me. And then because of that, none of my friends sold more than like 1,000. So I guess, how do you go about getting that respect from the people that you've known for forever?
I feel like you get what you ask for and like what you demand. So whether you feel like, realize that if they only sold $1,000, like, just drop that. Like, you were a first year branch, like, it's not your fault. Like, you're learning a lot. They probably also didn't put forth the 100% effort. Like, you just have to know you're 100%. Do you feel like you've learned a lot since last summer?
No, absolutely.
Do you feel like you know exactly what you need to fix?
I feel like I know what I need to fix, but I just don't know how I'm going to still gain that respect from other people who, have known me for years and then knew me before Vector.
Yeah. So use that use that as motivation and momentum to like prove them wrong, because you don't, honestly, to have a successful summer, you don't need their respect. Like you're gonna have so many other reps come through your door that they don't even know who your friends are. Like they're gonna know who you are, and if you demand that respect and have confidence in the beginning, like you kind of have to fake it till you make it, because you don't know if they're gonna, like, you should know that they're gonna do well, but that's having that confidence and just portraying it and speaking it to existence. So, honestly, like, just, I don't know. I would say, honestly, I just don't care what they say, because you're going to be recruiting, like, all their friends, and recruit all their friends with a passion and tell them, like, hey, I'm 100% better now, and they're going to be amazing, and just speak into his existence and know that you put in the work. Like, you can't just say that and not put the work to get better. Like, you have to put in that work and say it, because that's the only way it's going to happen, is that change.
Will, I want to actually add on to that. Reanna, that was a great response. I really appreciate that. I had a branch come to me last summer and ask me this very similar question ahead of time. Like, hey, I'm going to be recruiting my friends. Like, I just want to know how to separate myself from high school Shelby to branch Shelby. And the first question I have for you, Will, was before you recruited them, did you have any type of conversation with them about standards? Okay, that was probably where you went wrong, because they came into this thinking they're just going to work with their buddy. It's going to be fun. Oh, my buddy's my boss. Like, I don't really need to pay attention, or I don't really need to focus. This isn't really serious, because they never had the conversation with you ahead of time of like, hey man, this is the business. We're talking serious money here. You could be making $10,000, $15,000 this summer if you follow along, but you have to respect me. And if there's ever a point where I feel like you're taking advantage of me because you're working for your friend, then it's not going to work out. And you have to have that kind of confidence with them. Like what Reanna's saying, sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. And you can do it with love. You can do it with kind of like a tongue in cheek, but you got to say it. You've got to create the boundary and the line, especially when you've got friends who they're goof-offs and they might take advantage of you because they think that, you're an easy target or something like that. So for this upcoming summer, handpick a few of your friends who you feel like could really be beneficial, sit them down, have a real conversation. If they're not receptive to it, like Reanna said, you don't need them to be successful.
Just instilling that, just giving them a push away, before you even try to get them into the door.
Yeah. And also reminding them of what's at stake here. Like they can make serious money, but they have to respect you. And if they don't respect you, then you're not giving them a job. You have $10,000 that they could potentially earn. They have zero. You have leverage. They have none. You have to talk to them about that and share with them. Again, not in a way that comes off demeaning, but in a serious, confident way of like, listen, man, I'm the boss. And what that means is that I have standards and expectations in our office, and they're set up for your success. If you don't abide by them, then you're not going to be successful here, and it's not going to be my fault. Does that give you some insight?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense.
Cool. What other questions do we have here? Paige, thank you for giving your 2 cents on this.
What was the podcast? What was the name of that again?
It's Isaac Tolpin's episode in Changing Lives, Selling Knives, Dan Cassetta's podcast.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, how you talked about like sharing your vision in the group interview, and then like talking about it in the post screen as well. What would you share about your vision? Because I know you want to keep it short. So, like, what points would could you give an example of like a short like?
Yeah. Well, actually, let me ask Reanna, because I haven't created a vision for an office in a very long time. Reanna, did you do any small summary of a vision during your interviews?
Yes.
What did you say?
Oh boy. Let's see if I remember back that far. I think it was like when I talked about, we have a championship office here, and we're going after like top 5 in the nation, number 1 in the region, like just kind of like the small goals, and then talking about like the team itself. And when it talked about I would just name drop a lot too, so they can kind of vision a team that I didn't have. So like, for example, like when you talk about people who are working full-time or part-time, I would talk about like Marlena Booth. She's one of our top people here. She's she sold this much for the summer. She's a softball athlete, went to the school. Like, talk about the people, and then I would just talk about like our goals and like what we're going after, and that would be like in the wrap-up part of the interview. I don't know if you want like an example or not. I think, yeah. Does that make sense?
Answer your question, Marlena? Yeah. Okay. Cool. What other questions do you all have? All right, I'm gonna give it 10 seconds, and if no one else asks, then we're gonna jump off here.
So my other question was, when would you have that values talk with your reps?
So I think it's important to have them put on the wall first off, so that way it's always there. You don't necessarily have to mention it in the interview. Like, that's where you're going to be talking about the vision, and if it makes sense to add in, hey guys, like, we're the insert team name here. Something that we're going after this summer is competing nationwide. What you might not know about Vector is that it's a $250 million a year company. We have over 500 offices open, many of which are college students. We're competing nationwide. It's almost like an NCAA, and some of the values that we work behind are X, Y, and Z. It could fit in like that, or it could just be there, and then you could use them as post-interview questions, like, hey, one of the values that we live by in our office is integrity. Can you give me an example of a time that you acted in integrity? Like, that's a powerful post-interview question, right? So that could be something that you do in the beginning, but then the discussion aspect of integrity could be an icebreaker during day 2 of training, not day 1, because you need like a really generic icebreaker, but day 2 could be like a 15-minute discussion on it. And then a team meeting could be a discussion. It could be a one-on-one discussion during a PC. It could be during advanced training. Anywhere where you can fit in an extra 15 to 20 minutes, utilize it then. Answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Shelby.
Yep, no problem. Any other questions?
I do have one question.
Sure.
So I know we talked about a little bit about recruiting in the post summer, and like really with reps on your team, like how you've started off and you do the push and the training and like all that kind of stuff. You mentioned a few tips, but what would be like the biggest thing for recruiting once someone's actually made sales and like seeing that like results in the office after that point? Like,
so that's actually the easiest place to start recruiting from. So like Reanna said, I think it's important that you have a heartbeat on what everyone's PR list did. And Xavier, are you going to be a first-year branch or a second-year branch?
a first year.
Okay, so you'll find that as you get PR lists, like after you do a day full of PR calling, you kind of understand what's going on with each list, and you'll be instructed by your DVM to reach out to the rep and say, hey man, we scheduled this person for the interview, this person for the interview, they're scheduled here, like please give them a good luck text or whatever. So you'll have a general heartbeat on it from the start. It's up to you to not let those leads go stale though. So once your reps start getting momentum, let's say they hit their first $1,000 earned, it's having a PC with them saying, hey, you earned your first $1,000. Like, how are things going? How are you enjoying the job? Did you think it was going to be this easy, or you think you were going to be this successful? Hey, by the way, I know back during training, it feels like ages ago, we reached out a couple of your friends, and some of your friends came in for the interview, some are on the team, but a few of your friends like came in for the interview, didn't show up or didn't answer us. And now that you've made your first $1,000, like now that the job's legit, I would love to give your friends a second chance. So looking at your list here, who can we reach out to that would be excited to earn $1,000 and insert the same time period that they just earned their $1,000 in? Does that make sense?
Shelby, can I add on to that?
Yeah, Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have this talk I either have it in advanced training as a division, we either have it in advanced training, we'll have one there for like the people we didn't reach out to, and we'll be like, hey, these are the people we missed. And then I also have another one usually around that $1,000 mark, like Shelby was adding. And basically my conversation is along those lines, but like a different phrasing can be like, you know, no matter if someone likes sports or not, they know who LeBron James is, you know? And I'm like, hey, you're LeBron James. We want more LeBron Jameses. We want more people like LeBron. But here's the thing. LeBron James never won a national championship by himself. He had other superstars around him. He had Kyrie. He had, you know, you name it, Dwayne Wade, whoever. He had superstars. Now, if you're not a big sports person, that's okay. But basically what I'm saying is I want really good people with us, you know? Because, like, think about those people that you're thinking in your head, like, they would crush this job if they started, you know? We want those people. Like, think about how much fun that would be competing with them every week and, like, painting that picture to where, like, they emotionally get invested into that, you know, because that can a lot of times drive some action. So just, like, think about how fun that would be. Think about, like, you know, you've been to SE1. Think about, like, SE2 and being on stage with them and competing with them and, you know, that entire process, you know, and, like, we would love to build that with you. All right, so here's our plan. And then you just sort of lay it out. But, like, exactly what Shelby is saying, and I think you can even, like, dive it into, like, you know, a little bit of an emotional tie as well. Because, like, they're friends. They're people they care about, you know, making it genuine and letting them know how fun that would actually be. Because a lot of times they don't think about how fun it would actually be or how competitive it would be or whatever it may be.
So would you say just like painting the picture of the culture you want to create in their mind so they can like bring other people on that?
Yeah, so exactly that, and that's exactly how you create it, you know. You get that one rep, hey, I really appreciate, you know, all these people on the team. What if we got like X, Y, and Z added on, or, you know, like they may have mentioned so-and-so, like they would do so well at this or whatever, you know, just those like extra efforts. And then when that works out, you know, just promoting that to your team, you know, like you could be at the team meeting. What I always had was a slide. I started doing this towards the end of the summer. I wish I would have started earlier. I'm going to be doing it now. But I had a slide every single team meeting of all the people that were set for training, you know, that were recommended by a friend, and just saying like, hey, I really appreciate you all building the team, and every week, like, appreciating that. Because like there's a simple phrase of what you appreciate appreciates, you know, like if you start to appreciate someone for something, they're going to be more likely to do that over and over. And just constantly appreciating that team building aspect, and other reps are going to hear that and see how that benefits and how much more fun they're having, and they're going to want a piece of that too. Like does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really great tip.
So,
Thank you both. Like all it's super clear.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Cool. Well, I appreciate you all hanging on for the last couple of minutes here, and I hope that you gained value out of today's call, and I'll see you all later on. Bye.